X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain was the world's first fourth dimension coaster. And this attraction is pure insanity. X2 is one of the most disorienting rides in the world with the rotating seats. Sometimes you're above the track, sometimes you're below the track, but there's a good chance you'll be holding on for dear life as this coaster throws you around like a rag doll. While X2 is beloved by daredevils, this coaster had a rocky start at Magic Mountain, and it unfortunately led to Aerodynamics going bankrupt. So in this video, I will review X2. Aerodynamics was the foremost designer of steel roller coasters for almost 3 decades. They introduced the world's first tubular steel track roller coaster in the Matterhorn bobsleds at Disneyland in 1959. Then they introduced the world's first modern inverting coaster in Corkscrew at Knott's Berry Farm in 1975. Then they repeatedly broke the inversion records from themselves with their massive multi-loopers. And then in 1989, they introduced the world's first hypercoaster in Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point. When you needed a steel coaster, there was a good chance you'd call Aero. By the mid-1990s, Aero had fierce competition in the steel coaster market. Companies like Bolliger and Mabiard and Intamin were offering smoother and more refined layouts. Aero knew they needed to up their game. In 2000, they signed a contract with Six Flags Magic Mountain for one of the most ambitious coasters ever built. Named X, this would be the world's first fourth dimension coaster. Designed by Alan Schilke, this supersized coaster would seat riders on the side of the train, and the seats were capable of rotating forwards or backwards in a controlled spin to augment the ride's already crazy elements. This was achieved using 2 extra rails on the track and a mechanical rack and pinion gear mechanism. X was scheduled to open in the summer of 2001, but the coaster would not officially open until early 2002. X's technical difficulties swelled the cost of the project and ultimately bankrupted Aerodynamics. X had a rumored final price tag of $45 million. While X opened to rave reviews, it was a maintenance nightmare. The coaster would routinely open late or not at all, and sometimes when it opened, it only had 1 train in use, which would create 3 to 4 hour lines for the park's new signature attraction on busy days. X was seemingly closed more than it was open in its early years. Magic Mountain actually sued Aerodynamics, and then they tried to buy the blueprints themselves to fix their problematic coaster, which was tearing itself apart. X's extremely heavy trains were causing the ride to develop stress fractures in the trains, track, and supports. Something had to be done. For the 2008 season, Magic Mountain spent $10 million to have S&S upgrade X into X2. S&S had purchased Aero's assets, and in 2006, they had successfully built a larger, wilder, and more reliable fourth dimension coaster in Ejinika at Fuji-Q Highland. The X2 upgrade would have several improvements. 1, this fearsome coaster would finally get a paint scheme fitting for a ride as intense as this. X had an awkward yellow and pink paint scheme that seemed more suitable for a kiddie coaster. X2 is the first coaster many people see as they pull into Six Flags Magic Mountain's parking lot, so the blood red track and black supports makes a much stronger first impression. 2, X2 would receive new trains. These trains would be much lighter to reduce wear and tear on the structure, and they would also feature a pneumatic restraint system that would not jam like X's old mechanical restraints. These trains are what significantly improved this 4D coaster's uptime. 3, the ride received multi-sensory effects. The trains received onboard audio, and the soundtrack included portions of Harry Connick Jr.'s It Had to Be You, Metallica's Enter Sandman, Aerosmith's Love in an Elevator, Beastie Boys' Sabotage, and Rage Against the Machine's Wake Up. While the mashup of songs was random, they fed into the energy of the coaster. Unfortunately, the audio was sporadic from day one, and it has been a few years since it successfully worked for me. The ride also received flame effects before the final Raven turn. This effect works in roughly half my visits. 4, the ride received a separate unload platform to increase this coaster's throughput. The ride is still programmed to stop here, but now riders once again load and unload in the same spa as they used to. X2 tends to have one of the longest lines at Magic Mountain on any given day, which is understandable given its uniqueness and popularity. The ride routinely has an hour wait by the early afternoon most days. Occasionally, the line will die by the mid-afternoon to become a walk-on, but this is inconsistent. In my most recent weekday visits, it was a walk-on near close on one day, but an hour wait the next day. Now, the walk to X2 is pretty long. The ride's entrance is all by itself at the end of a bridge, and then the queue line is pretty long too. It offers some good views of Viper, which is honestly more interesting to look at than the billboards that Six Flags put in this queue line. You have some billboards highlighting what a boring Type A person does for fun, versus an extreme Type X person does for fun. Towards the end of the main queue line, the line splits off into two separate queues for each side of the load platform. Sometimes there is a grouper there who will direct you to a specific side, but if I have my choice, I choose to go to the right and through the tunnel most times. The right side has a shorter physical distance because it's a compact staircase versus the long ramp on the left side. More guests also tend to head up the ramp because it's more visible, and they don't always realize they're allowed to go through the tunnel. In terms of the ride experience, I don't have a preference if I'm on the right or left side of the train. The best way to guarantee a ride in X2 with minimal wait is to head there first. If X2 opens with the park, you can usually get a few laps before the crowds arrive. You can also use the strategy of Twisted Colossus, but I prefer to start with X2 for a few reasons. 1. X2 builds a line faster because it's closer to the main entrance. 2. X2 is a lower capacity. X2 is 3 trains, each seating 28 riders, but at maximum it can only have 2 trains running. If you visit in the summer, X2 will usually have 2 trains going. But in all my fall, winter, and spring visits, X2 has run just 1 train. 3. X2 is less reliable. It's far less prone to mechanical issues now, but it's still one of the most sensitive rides in the park when it comes to wind-related closures. I've had this happen to me in some of my winter visits. 4. You have limited options to skip X2's line. It's not included on the membership Skip the Line passes, and for the longest time, Flash Pass users had to pay an additional $15 surcharge on top of the overall device cost just to skip X2's line once. Now X2 is included on all tiers of Flash Pass as a single reservation. The load platform for X2 is pretty interesting. Off to the side are a bank of paid lockers. You used to have to purchase a locker for any loose articles, but now they allow you to place them on the side of the load platform. Since boarding and exiting riders can access these lockers from the same spot, exiting riders still have access to the air gates. This is both a blessing on quiet days and a curse on busy days. On quiet days, the employees will allow guests to get right back in line, which saves you one heck of a walk. On busy days, this setup can lead to queue jumping if the employees are not paying attention. I have a slight preference for the back row in X2 because it's a little more intense back there, but I have a major preference for the inside seats. The biggest Achilles heel with X2 is its roughness. Like a lot of wing coasters, the ride is bouncy, and it is way bouncier on the outside seats. Since X2 is hard plastic seats, this bouncing can get uncomfortable, particularly towards the end of the ride. X2 has unique restraints. It's an adjustable height butterfly harness, and you feel very exposed with this restraint system. Your entire lower body is surprisingly free for the experience, which makes for some intriguing airtime during the ride. X2 dispatches in reverse and begins by turning out of the station. You then ascend the 175-foot or 53-meter tall lift hill. And this lift hill offers stunning views of Magic Mountain, particularly if you're lucky enough to ride during sunset. It is one of the best views you can get on any coaster. Once at the top, the ceremony begins, with this tiny pre-drop. And if you're in the back, you actually get a little bit of float on this element. But it's the calm before the storm, as it leads into one of the craziest drops ever devised. X2 features a near vertical drop with a max angle of descent of 88.5 degrees, and it is massive too. It stands a whopping 215 feet or 66 meters tall. Those stats alone are impressive, but it gets even better when you add in the rotating seats. As you head down the drop, the seats rotate forwards, so you're staring directly at the ground. It's one of the scariest visuals on any attraction, as you're staring at the ground, diving right towards it. It always gets my heart pounding. It's especially sweet in the back, because you get a little bit of floater airtime as well when you're pulled over the drop. Now, as nutty as the drop is from the beginning, it gets even crazier. Halfway down the drop, you perform a fast and wild forwards flip. It feels so wrong to perform a flip at roughly 76 miles per hour or 122 kilometers per hour, but that is exactly what X2 does. It always takes my breath away and it feels out of control. You finish the drop on top of the track, heading backwards, and the pullout has some very strong positive Gs. I always gray out heading into the next element. Now this pullout is also one of the bumpier parts in the ride if you're on an outside seat. The next element is a supersized inside Raven turn. You exit the element beneath the track going forwards, and the resulting drop is marvelous. You get good sustained floater airtime in any row. And remember, because of the restraints, you will physically feel your legs and butt leave the seat a few inches. It's sort of disconcerting. X2 then glides over a giant camelback while the vehicles simultaneously perform a backflip. The result is several seconds of sustained floater airtime while gracefully performing a flip. It is super disorienting and just pure bliss. I think the airtime is a little stronger towards the back, but it's great in all rows. That is followed by the one dud element on X2, the turnaround. It's rather slow and forceless. Edge and Ike actually fixed this turnaround by having it near vertical and adding a seat rotation. On X2, this turnaround above the station gives riders their only chance to catch their breath. You then regain your speed through another camelback. You enter this element going forwards, beneath the track, and then you exit it above the track going backwards. For riders, this element feels like a zero-G roll between the flipping of the track and the sustained floater airtime. Unlike the prior camelback, the airtime is a bit stronger up front this time. And you'll also see the fire effects go off as you exit the element if you're lucky. You then head into the most intense element on the ride in my opinion, the outside Raven turn. Unlike the first Raven turn that is massive in scale, this one is arguably too compact, and the train is absolutely whipped through it. The sustained positive Gs in this element are incredible. But if you're on an outside seat, brace yourself. The pullout is very bouncy and downright painful. There is a high likelihood your calves will slam against those hard plastic seats when you go through the bottom of it. You then rapidly twist into the brake run. This inversion has strong laterals, and it also lifts riders out of their seat. On one of my rides, my legs were even dangling off the side of the vehicle from the abruptness of this element. That is how much X2 lifted up my lower body and how freeing the restraints are. But like the prior Raven turn, this can be another bumpy one if you're on an outside seat. You then hit the brake run, ending your 3,610 feet or 1,100 meters of pure insanity. So what would I rate X2? I would give this coaster a 9.5 out of 10. This is one of the most ambitious coasters ever built, and it's easily one of the most thrilling. This ride performs elements that just sound wrong. Whoever thought of creating a hyper-sized, near-vertical drop that also flips riders upside down is a madman. And the rest of the layout has you scratching your head which way is up and which way is down. The rest of the ride combines well-timed flips with crushing positive Gs and some underrated airtime due to how free those restraints are. X2 is a ride you will not soon forget. The only reason I cannot give this ride a perfect score is the bumpiness, especially on the outer seats. For some, this bumpiness can be a complete deal breaker, and I know plenty of people who hate this ride, but I'm willing to endure that bumpiness for the intensity that X2 delivers. Edge and Ika may be the superior ride. It's bigger and wilder, but it's also rougher. That is why I place both rides similarly in my rankings. S&S has not built one of these since 2012, and I'm hoping more are built in the future. These rides may carry a hefty price tag, but they're a thrill seeker's dream. So those are my thoughts on X2, the crazy 4th dimension coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Have you ridden X2? Do you think it's one of the most intense coasters in the world? I would love to hear your thoughts on Arrow's final coaster down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.